The first rumor began as a whisper carried on desert wind. A thin thread of doubt spun through the golden heat of Egypt. It was said she was too beautiful, too powerful, too sudden in her rise to be innocent of secrets. Her name was Nefertiti, and long after her city turned to dust, she would be called the queen who fooled the world. When she first arrived at court, no one recorded the moment precisely. History rarely preserves quiet entrances, only thunder of consequences. She was young, luminous, with a composure that unsettled older courtiers, survivors of 3 reigns and countless intrigues. She walked as if she had measured the corridors of power. Some claimed she was foreign-born. Others insisted she was Egyptian. She married the pharaoh who would turn his back on centuries of tradition. He searched beyond the rigid pantheon of gods. Together, they ignited a spark. The old gods, carved into stone, began to fade. In their place rose a single radiant disk, the Aten. Its rays stretched down like fingers, ending in tiny hands that offered life. The priests muttered first in private chambers. Egypt had always balanced power carefully. To erase gods entirely was unthinkable. Yet the royal couple declared devotion to a singular light, and Nefertiti was always there. She was carved in relief beside her husband, not as a shadow, but as a partner. She wore the tall blue crown that would captivate modern eyes. Artists depicted her smiting enemies, driving chariots, offering sacrifices. Scenes once reserved solely for kings now bore her image. The lines between queen and pharaoh grew thin. In the new capital city they built, walls gleamed white beneath the sun. Temples stood open to the sky, welcoming the Aten. Courtiers found themselves transplanted into this radical experiment. Some embraced it, others complied with tight smiles and careful silence. The queen moved through it all with serene assurance. She had 6 daughters, each named with reverence to the Aten. There were carvings of laughter, of the king and queen kissing their children beneath the sun's rays. It was a new aesthetic. Gone were the rigidly idealized features. In their place appeared elongated skulls, heavy-lidded eyes, soft bellies, and exaggerated lips. Scholars later debated the meaning of those forms. Were they symbolic, medical, artistic revolution, or something else entirely? A deliberate distortion meant to emphasize divine uniqueness. In those days, no one dared question openly, but whispers traveled faster than chariots. "She stands too close to him," one official murmured, as if she were more than wife. "She speaks for the Aten," another replied. Indeed, Nefertiti's voice carried in ceremonies, clear and resonant. When she lifted her arms, the crowd followed. It was said she could hold a silence so complete that even the desert wind paused to listen. She understood perception. Years passed, and then something strange happened. Her name began to change. In certain inscriptions, the queen's identity shifted. Titles multiplied. There were hints of a transformation. Some reliefs showed her wielding authority in ways that unsettled supporters. Then, abruptly, her presence seemed to fade. Records grew scarce. Images were defaced or left unfinished. It was as if she had stepped through a veil. The king's health declined, or perhaps his resolve did. The great experiment of atonism faced resistance beyond the palace walls. Trade faltered. Borders strained. The old priesthoods retained networks of influence as deep as the Nile itself. Egypt had always thrived on balance. Now it wobbled between revelation and ruin. Then came the ultimate vanishing. Nefertiti disappeared from official record. No grand funeral inscription announced her passing. No tomb was definitively claimed as hers. For a woman whose image had once dominated temple walls, the silence was deafening. Some believed she had died in a plague. Others whispered darker theories, that she had fallen from favor, that court intrigue had swallowed her whole. But there was another possibility, one so audacious it seemed almost mythic. What if she had not vanished at all? What if she had changed her name, assumed a new identity, and ruled as pharaoh in her own right? Later generations uncovered fragments of names, Hafirist cartouches altered, figures chiseled and re-carved. A mysterious Corregent appeared in the historical haze, ruling briefly between the revolutionary king and the boy who would restore the old gods. The identity of this ruler was debated fiercely. Was it a male relative, a shadowy prince, or was it Nefertiti herself, stepping fully into power under a different name? If so, it would have been the ultimate act of political genius. To rule as a woman in Egypt was not unprecedented, but each faced resistance, their reigns often smoothed over by successors. For Nefertiti, who had already helped dismantle centuries of religious tradition, claiming the throne outright might have been too volatile. A new name, a reshaped identity, these could offer continuity while masking transformation. Imagine her standing before a mirror of polished bronze, attendants fastening the regalia of kingship around her shoulders. The crook and flail, symbols of shepherd and ruler. The false beard tied beneath her chin. The double crown resting heavy upon her head. Not disguise, but declaration. If she did this, she fooled not only her contemporaries, but millennia of historians. The boy who followed Tutankhamun, later renamed Tutankhamun, would reverse the revolution. The old gods returned. The capital shifted back. Aten's temples fell into neglect. Official narratives painted the previous era as aberration. Names were erased, statues smashed, entire chapters of history deliberately obscured. And yet, the desert remembers. Centuries later, explorers and archaeologists brushed sand from carved stone and rediscovered her face. It emerged from the darkness with startling freshness. The long neck, the poised lips, the serene yet penetrating gaze. The bust, found in a sculptor's workshop, was unfinished in one eye, but complete in its impact. The world stared, astonished. She seemed modern, almost alive. A queen resurrected not through temples or inscriptions, but through art. But beauty can deceive. The bust presented an ideal smooth skin, symmetrical features, an aura of perfection. Was this the real woman, or a carefully curated image? Ancient rulers understood propaganda as keenly as any modern state. Portraiture was power. By controlling how she was seen, Nefertiti controlled how she was remembered. And what of the elongated skulls depicted in art? Some researchers speculated about genetic conditions. Others insisted on stylistic choice. But consider another angle. What if the exaggerated forms were meant to signal transcendence, to emphasize divine uniqueness? By reshaping the royal image, she and her husband distanced themselves from ordinary humanity. They became living embodiments of the Aten's radiance. If so, it was an early experiment in myth-making. The more fragments uncovered, the more questions multiplied. Tombs were found, plundered, repurposed. Hidden chambers hinted at secrets yet untouched. Each discovery sparked headlines, only for fresh evidence to complicate the story further. The queen remained elusive. To fool the world is not merely to deceive contemporaries. It is to craft a narrative so layered that even centuries of scrutiny cannot unravel it completely. Perhaps she understood that permanence is an illusion. Stone erodes, names fade, but mystery endures. By leaving gaps, by vanishing at the height of visibility, she ensured eternal fascination. She became a question mark, etched into history. Imagine the final days of the Aten city. Dust gathering in abandoned courtyards. Paint peeling from sunlit walls. Priests quietly restoring old idols in hidden shrines. Somewhere within the palace, a decision being made, a name chosen, and transformation enacted. Or perhaps none of it happened that way. Perhaps she truly died, mourned privately. Her body laid in a tomb still undiscovered. Perhaps the corrigent was someone else entirely, and the mystery is modern longing. Humans crave intrigue. We look at incomplete records and fill them with ambition, romance, betrayal. Yet even if she did not rule as pharaoh, she still reshaped Egypt. She stood beside a king who dared to challenge belief. She embodied a new vision of queenship, active, visible, authoritative. She left behind an image so powerful that it transcended her city. That alone is a kind of triumph. The desert wind still sweeps across the ruins of that radical capital. Tourists walk among broken columns, cameras raised, seeking connection to a distant past. Scholars debate inscriptions in hushed libraries. The bust resides in controlled light, protected and studied, its gaze unblinking. What did she think in those private moments? Did she doubt? Did she fear the backlash of tradition? Or did she believe utterly in the new world she was building? To fool the world requires vision. It requires understanding not only of people, but of time. If Nefertiti anticipated that her era would be dismantled, perhaps she also understood that erasure can amplify legacy. The more thoroughly a regime tried to wipe her from record, the more tantalizing her absence would become. In the end, history is a collaboration between the living and the dead. We interpret fragments. We project motives. We craft stories around silent stone. Nefertiti's greatest achievement may not have been religious revolution or political maneuvering, but narrative mastery. She became whatever each era needed her to be. Heretic, beauty, feminist icon, conspirator, enlightened ruler, queen, pharaoh, ghost. The truth lies somewhere beneath layers of sand and speculation, waiting patiently. And perhaps that is the final twist, that the woman who may have fooled the world did so not with lies, but with brilliance, by stepping into power so completely that even time could not contain her. Long after the Aten's temples crumbled, and the old gods reclaimed their altars, her face endured, eyes lined in black, lips curved in enigmatic calm, a reminder that history's certainties are fragile, and that sometimes the most powerful figures are those who leave us wondering whether we ever truly understood them at all.